that came in from several different countries to be there for that day. And right now we're feeding 125 preschool kids per week. We provide both pencils, crayons, erasers, etc., as well as the one meal, not every day. We do it about 3 days a week. We need to raise some more money for it to be able to go to 5 days a week, but that's where we are right now. And the 3 camps, VBS, the one youth rally is held on our property. Because of the effort last year, we've had the government, we are known, we have a tax-free foundation there. It's called Fundación Los Niños del Rey. It's like our 501c3 here in America. We bring things in tax exempt. Well, several other nonprofits were in Nicaragua, and it's called an NGO, non-government organization. They closed close to 1,500 last year. Just shut them down. We were lucky. They came out, found out that we're doing what our bylaws say, and right now the education ministry actually came out and presented basically a recognition for Eric's work with children. And that's really neat, because the government knows that we're living up to the promise that we made to get the foundation. Here's where we're feeding those kids, and we take the foods directly to the school. They don't come on our grounds for that. And as you can see, they're ready. This may be the only good meal they have for the day. But we're glad we could supply it, but it indirectly comes from funds from Children of the King, from this congregation. So thank you. We have some individuals, we have some other churches that are helping us. But it's like any nonprofit, you're always looking for more. So if you have extra money, want to donate, just put your name on it and put in the collection plate, and just put Nicaragua, and Jerry Nunley will take care of that. But anyway, this is one of the VBS, they call it a sports camp. Well, they were talking about Jesus as flame. And they each get a shirt, and they're on campus really for a week. And in this case, I think there were 160, and usually they'll raise from 160 to 175 students that will come on and be in our VBS. They've had Jonah, and we have the Bika students that's on the same campus. They come out and help put this on for both the VBS and also for our youth. And then also this is the youth attendance just in November of this last year. And there's the supplies and things that we have helped with continually. And then we move up to the north of Managua, the northern part of the country, to the town of Leon. And Fatima Church of Christ is oversaw by Luis and Maritza Garcia. This is an uncle to Eric Garcia and a brother to Luis Garcia that we talked about a while ago at Hinetepe. Right now that Maritza passed away in August, so it's been some real tough times for Javier. And Javier is right now out of the hospital but getting ready to go in for surgery. He's been at Leon for about 37 years. So he's the one that started that congregation. And the neat part about it is that out of that, they run about 220 there every Sunday morning. And the net effect is, out of that, they get about, that's 900 U.S. currency. It's the largest that of all of ours of U.S. giving. Net effect is they're a very strong congregation. They actually decided, this has been several years back, we're going to start one congregation new around Leon per year. They've gone through, have 16 additional congregations, and most of these are 5 or 8 miles from, because a lot of people don't have a car. And so, yeah, it's worked out real well, and they also send preachers out to those congregations if they don't have a full-time person there that can handle that. This is one of the youth gatherings there at Fatima, and so that's their building. It's well maintained, And this guy is Mario and his wife Magali. He's totally blind. He's 35 years old and been blind, totally blind since age 21 due to diabetes. The deep part about it is that when I first met them, that he has his wife Magali read Scripture to him. He memorizes it for what he's going to use in the sermon on Sunday morning. Yeah. Not real easy if we had to do it. But he's been doing it now for, well, since he was 21. But what's neat about it, when I first met them, that I didn't put a slide in here, but they had a motorcycle, and they actually would get on that motorcycle. She'd be driving, he'd be behind her, going all over the places. They preach and teach at about 3 congregations: Rialto, Chinandega, and there at Fatima some. Oh, he's 38 now instead of 35. But his wife that reads him that scripture, he records it, and he replays it to his memory for his sermon for the next Sunday. Magali drives now the car that we helped them buy. It's one of those things that real happy that that has continued to go well. Another one is that Pablo Sanabria, his wife Desiree, they work now with 3 churches. They were at La Fuente, which is part of Managua, the big city, just a suburb there of it. But net effect is that he's been there a good while, and about 3 years ago, he asked that if he could start doing full-time commentaries. He was doing them part-time, where there's very few commentaries in Spanish of the New Testament. Well, Luis Garcia is also doing the same thing. He's doing commentaries in Spanish, and they get them printed, and Pablo's got, I think, 5 of the New Testament books with commentary. And then also that he preaches for a different church per month, but he's really promoting leadership having to do with elderships in the congregations there in Nicaragua. And he's been well received to be able to come and talk to these congregations about the leadership as far as what the Bible wants. Because Nicaragua has been one of those countries that's been under the Catholicism of the pastor and leadership rather than an eldership. So anyway, that's having some good things, and that there's just about 3 or 4, but he actually, I think it's have 5 or 6 now that he's done. Finally, having to do with, I'm going to have a little time here for us to talk about questions you may have, but our son Kevin that's come up, lives in Houston, that we have started supporting him when he went to work with it wasn't named the Texas International Bible Institute at that time. It was the Texas Gulf Coast, and they shortened the name, make it easier for people to recognize. But he, along with a professor that's now at Abilene Christian, Steve Austin, they wanted to start evangelizing Houston. They just celebrated 20 years in the TIBI is called, short time, and recognized, we'll kind of talk about more they've done, but net effect, when he went to work for them, he was assistant administrator, and they put together 40 classes that they have, and everything they do is in Spanish. And you have to get a certificate, you have to go through and pass 40 different classes over basically a 2-year period of time. And that effect is that this is our son, his wife, and our granddaughter, Bethany. Bethany just finished through the AIM program, which part of the Lubbock Sunset School of Preaching, has Adventures in Missions. And, of course, Mom and Dad went through that several years ago and went to Germany for 2 years, actually 18 months, and when she started to decide after she graduated from high school last year, what do you think I want to do? I want to go through AIM. So she did, and she went to Mexico City. She finished up her tour there in December of last year in Mexico City, Now she came back and is now in Lubbock. She's getting ready to get married, 22nd of this month. So we'll be going out that way for a wedding. But the deep part about the work that Kevin and Steve Austin started, that they were going to evangelize Houston, thinking, we got lots of Spanish folks here, except that's not what the Lord intended. Since it grew from 20 years, Kevin was about 5 years old when he went to work for them, and now they do, all in Spanish, these classes by Zoom. Most of you know what Zoom is. It's streaming like we're doing here right now. He does it to his students that are full-time. They go to class all day. He's one of the professors. They have 20 professors that they pull in from all over, really, the world, come in to teach a class. And in that, he actually does the oversight of it. But here's kind of what results they've had. Just last year, they've had 191 baptisms at the sites where Tibius helped train leaders. That's making a total of 5,200 plus baptisms since 2009. So since 2009, we have been a part of planting 73 new congregations. It's just amazing what God had in mind that they started to say, well, we're going to do it in Houston. Well, Kevin can have a class. He teaches Spanish, but he does Greek and Spanish. He has a Greek 1 and a Greek 2 class that he teaches, as well as hermeneutics and other things. But net effect is they graduate, and the TIBI is accredited, meaning that when they graduate of the 40 classes, all of our Christian colleges will allow their students to go into a master's program, which is kind of neat. Here again, it's a bigger thing than we ever thought, even that they thought. But then, back in November, we marked 10th anniversary in Cuba. Well, Cuba has internet, but it's controlled by the government. Not everybody could get it. So what they did when they first went to Cuba, they took their 40 programs on flash drives, loaded them, and have one of the ministers there in Cuba started, and there's actually what they call 16 states in Cuba. They actually were able to download those programs to these 16 different states. Ministers in those areas started promoting through their classes. They actually come to a class. Well, net effect is that under the leadership of this particular minister's wife, that they now have had over 16,000 students in all. 2,400 plus of these are active students in one or more courses. And in December, we have a total of 4,100 plus students in Zoom online right now. Anybody that speaks Spanish, they can go to the TIBI website, or they can go to, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, and you can take their classes and send in for, credit. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. But it's just amazing what they've been able to do with this particular session, that God had a bigger plan. I'm glad that they allowed the Spirit to work in their lives because of that. Well, we have one more that just come on recently. There's a congregation in Veracruz, which is like a suburb of Manoa, and he had been helping in a congregation, but he wanted to go into full-time ministry. And we were able to raise the funds, and currently right now, he and his family will live on $300 a month. The local congregation is putting up 100, and we found 200 a month for this year to let him get a start. And so he's working full-time with the Veracruz Church of Christ. And Raul and Maria Ruiz Morales, they have 3 kids, and they currently have 45 adults and 20 children. And net effect is that is the current work that Lewis and John oversee. And I'm happy to say that the work that each of these men do, we get a report for them, many of them monthly, some are every 2 months at a time, but they're consistent in giving reports so we know what's going on. And of course, I've got Eric that's down there, and it's called the 20 Churches of the South, meaning the churches that are south of Manawa. They meet, the preachers meet monthly and have an all-day kind of seminar and kind of help each of those congregations kind of see what's happening in their areas, if they have some need of help. So the net effect is they have a very good rapport of helping one another in those congregations. Lewis, is there anything that you want to bring that we haven't touched on? Come on up. Okay? Okay.
First of all, let me just say thank you all for the contribution you make here to allow these things to be done that Jerry's talked about. My apology, our apologies that I don't think we do a very good job keeping you informed about what we're doing down there. I think we could do better, but just please rest assured that it's appreciated, it's known down there. This congregation is well known in Nicaragua. An interesting feature of the churches down there, and Jerry mentioned BICA, is that they graduate, 35 students a year that are capable of being very solid pulpit preachers. Not all of them want to go into preaching, but a bunch of them do. Now, here's what's different about Nicaragua than here. And you tell me if it's good or bad. But they believe that when a congregation gets to be about 80, that's big enough, because over 80, people can't get to know each other very well. So they want to start a new congregation. Well, logistically, that needs to be done because 95% of the people that attend church services in Nicaragua walk there. So if you've got a building more than a mile from the people, it's difficult for them to get there. So the whole idea of starting a new one is very logical to them. Now, this Raw guy, he was just a construction worker. He wasn't a BICA graduate, but he decided he wanted to preach. So I don't see how they can possibly get by on $300 a month, but that's what he's going to make. So these BICA graduates, a lot of them want to go out, and that's why out of Fatima they're able to start a new congregation a year, is because they'll just step out 4 or 5 miles from the building and start another congregation. Now, what that does, though, when you have congregations of usually less than 80, you don't have very many qualified men to be elders. So one issue there is there's not very many congregations with an eldership. So I don't know what word you want to use it, but they call them an overseer. I like to call them the master pastor, because usually you got one boss hog that runs the show pretty heavily handed. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not, but that's a feature we deal with in Nicaragua. So another apology, I don't care how good Jerry put numbers up about Texas International Bible Institute, he didn't do it justice. You cannot believe the advancements in the things that took place, led by Steve Austin and Kevin Montgomery, in doing that program. And I think sometime this summer we're going to get Kevin here.
Yes.
To put on a full-time, a longer program with telling you about Tibby. So I hope that you're anxious to hear more about that. Thank you for your contribution. If there's anything that you could see fit to help us some more, we're always scrambling for a few bucks, because there's so many requests come from down there. Those people don't have anything.
Lewis,
and they know we're rich.
You might see if they have any questions and you could answer.
Well, let me tell you something that we're thinking about. Now, this is not approved. I mentioned it to Jerry. It hadn't gone to the other elders. But what we're thinking about, because we're always getting requests, buying diabetes strips for that blind preacher, for fixing up his car, pair of glasses, some other people need surgery, medical issues, they got no money. So one thing we'd like to do to help communicate better, and Donna and Kathy, this would probably become more work for you than for me, but when we see these requests, we'd like to put a little blurb in the bulletin about so-and-so needs a pair of glasses, and we need $350. Now, a technique that they use at Edgemere, and I'd like to see what you think about it here, is that they have an understanding when these needs come into the bulletin that every $5 bill that comes into the collection plate is automatically earmarked for that need. So I don't know whether you'd like to do that here or not, but we'd love some feedback. Is that something that makes sense? So you could just, you know, we don't hesitate to pull $5 out and go buy a hamburger, and we don't make it a tax deduction. We just do it. And that might be a spontaneous way we could do to help support some of that work. If you think that's an idea worth trying, let us know. Any questions?
Yeah. Second, I'm trying. Did you hear what he said?
No, I'm deaf too.
Can you speak up a little bit? We're both hard of hearing.
Come
Come
up here
on.
and get the mic, it'd be the easiest.
When you showed the picture of the sports camp
Yeah,
and they were in a pavilion,
yeah,
was that the pavilion on Los Angeles?
okay. Well, if you'll let me have it here. Well,
The
that,
answer is yes,
no, that,
it is.
this is, oh, the sports camp, yeah, right there. Whoop, one more down. That's the pavilion, yeah.
Somebody donated the money to build that, right?
Well, actually, Eric was able to raise the money to build that. That's something, this big pavilion, when we had a children's home, there was one little girl that was age 6 that was kind of adopted by James and Ramona Dixon to send things for her need. At our children's home, well, she contracted cancer and passed away. And one of the things that she had asked for with Eric and Evelyn was, can we get some place to play out of the rain? And so over time, they built, all those columns were manually, they built it up, and somebody along the ladder was handing 5-gallon buckets of concrete up and poured it in those columns to build it. And it's all got a big cover on it, and they use it for Beaker graduation as well as for the camp here of VBS, our youth conference that they have. It is really well utilized because when Beaker uses it for graduation, if we have students graduating from our Children of the King teachers and preachers class, they also graduate. Last year we graduated 6 they always graduate in December, about half the class from Beaker. So they got only about half graduating still because it's a 2-year program. Well, but because of that, they put down white tables, chairs, cover it with a nice covering. I mean, it's first class when the Beaker. Well, the Beaker is actually oversaw by Eric on the property, except that the churches, there's 3 of them in Texas, and they'll probably have more than that, raise all the money to make that work. And the Beaker, it takes about $18,000 a month to run the teachers and preachers program. And one of the main guys is out of Plano, Texas. Another one is down to another congregation down near Houston. But it's just a work that they really mesh with us and help us to Children of the King, both on these VBSs, put them on 3 times a year, and they put on the skits and everything to help the kids relate. So, Bill, is there other questions? Yes, back here, Ree. See if we.
travel all day to be baptized and get on a bus. And these are some of the things that happen down there that we don't always know about. But can you imagine going forward and just wanting to be baptized so bad you can't stand it and you don't have any water? God took care of that.
Yep.
I mean, he took care of that. So,
Ray, thank you. It's one of those things that when we were down there on our medical trips and all, it's not uncommon that they would stop the medical or whatever else they're doing. They would stop and say, "We have a baptism." We've been down to a creek, a pond, and even a baptistry that is fairly close that to have baptism and prayers. And it's just amazing. The people there are giving and loving. I've got brothers and sisters there that I've grown to love deeply. I know that Lewis feels the same of what's there. So, again, I'm like Lewis. We thank you, each of you, for your support for all these years. Lewis?
Reed, just don't forget, Jesus walked 6 days to get baptized from Nazareth down to the Jordan River. It might do us better if we had to walk a while before we were.
I don't think it would hurt us.
Any other questions? Oh, way over here. Yes.
Does Eric still have the medical clinic on the property? Does Eric still have the medical? No.
Well, officially, no. And we do keep some supplies and what we call the offices there that Eric and Evelyn are both still physicians, that they help the Beacon students, or if there's somebody that's in the immediate area that wants to come and of the church there, they'll help them. But it's very limited. They don't handle any narcotics, kind of like our clinic here. But we used to take down, I don't remember, I think Kenny was 35 or 37 of those big plastic. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything just works. Kevin comes up with a place for us to store it in Houston. My sister knew the security at the airport and saw it through the airport down there. And then that first year, they confiscated us, and you and Carl and Everett
Kent was there.
sprayed those
Yeah.
suitcases out of the
Yeah.
Hagen Common.
Yeah. Well, these containers, yeah. Yeah.
We had children in those houses, and Daniel Ortega comes back in power. I read Constantine, he comes back in power. He says you can't, his wife says you can't have any children. And one by one, they come and get those kids. They come and get these kids. Some of them were severely handicapped. They were all children of drug addicts. And pretty soon, Eric's standing there with no children. And then what do? They prosecute Eric. What was that? 2 or 3 year trial? And he was in prison like Paul? Jerry's not telling you all the things that he's dealt with that have been heavy.
Well, you know, those containers, we couldn't even take them today because they're probably 3.5 foot long and 24 inches wide.
Yeah.
They'd be overweight and oversized. And that's what we took medicine in. And other things, little toys to give away to the kids, that kind of thing. But net effect is, we, over the years, because of this congregation's support for the work in Nicaragua, has continued to build, and it hasn't stopped. They're still working with starting a new congregation like Lewis was talking about. So be thankful for what the Lord has given you opportunity to do. We'll call it quits, give y'all about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to visit. If there's questions later, let me know. Thank you.
Jerry,
What?
I still got it. You didn't tell them either
I'm not sure I'm getting all of what you're saying, Ree. You're, I know your voice carries, but
That's all right.
it's,
It's just another one of those things that is taking is normal.
okay. Well, I know this. Because of the efforts of our congregation has had an effect, a great effect on what Nicaragua has done in growth. The church has been blessed collectively because of the efforts. So let's do this. Let's keep up the good work. Thank you for your time.